Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday. I almost forgot what day it was. Sorry. My hair is having trouble staying upright today, but I love this. It's a little scrunchy with a bow thing. Anyways, all right, here we are. It is Tuesday, and so the rest of the week, I want to spend highlighting some pretty important people in history, and not that so far distant history either. These are people who lived and are still living in the who were born, I should say, and lived in the 20th century and did a lot of their stuff in the 20th century. As far as I know, one of them I cover may not have been born in the 20th century, but pretty close to it. But anyways, they did a lot of their work in the 20th century, and for one of them, their work still continues today. For others, it's a cultural thing that keeps growing and growing. And for another, it set off an entire nation or national and international way of dealing with certain things. And if not for this group and these two other people and their groups, who knows, right? So the first person, and I just read about her last night, and these are people I'd never heard of until this year. And I don't want to give anything away, all right? But just so you know, there's a reason I'm wearing this shirt today. So I'm wearing it in honor of the work that Sister Jeannine Gramick has done. Now, Sister Jeannine, look, I'm a little more high-tech today. She was born in a Polish Roman Catholic family in Philadelphia and attended Catholic grade and high schools. She moved to Baltimore in 1960 to join the School Sisters of Notre Dame, teaching high school mathematics through the 1960s. Later, she was an associate professor of mathematics at the College of Notre Dame of Maryland in early 1970s. She graduated in 1969 with a Master's of Science degree in math. Seriously, math. That's a miracle in itself. Math. From the University of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame, excuse me. I'm being all French here. For the Americans, it's Notre Dame. Gramick completed a Ph.D. at the University of Pennsylvania, obtained in 1975. Her outreach, and here's where the shirt comes in. Her outreach to the gay and lesbian community began in 1971, and in 1972 and 1973, she co-founded chapters of Dignity USA in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., as well as the Conference for Catholic Lesbians. So, you all know, I'm a very proud ally of the LGBTQ community. Dignity USA is, I just looked this up, it also exists in Canada, Dignity Canada. It is made up of local chapters across the country and functions both as a support and social group for LGBT and LGBT accepting Catholics to worship together. So there was a time, look at this. Dignity was founded in early 1969 in San Diego, California. Ta-da! And this is where I'm at. By Father Patrick Nydorf. First as a counseling group, then as a support group. That makes it a pre-Stonewall LGBT organization that is still in existence. The first chapter of Dignity formed in 1970 in Los Angeles. Okay, so that's a little history of, Sister Jeannine. Now, here's the thing. Good morning, Muddy. Thank you. It is my ally shirt, right? You are safe with me. And if you look close, I'm sure Muddy noticed it because I think she's seen this before. But if you look close, it's all the different flags, right? You start with the common kind of all-encompassing flag, and then you go around, and it's all the different flags, but they're different planets, right? Because it's safe space, so I kind of get to nerd out and be an ally in my shirt. Because science, and I'm not that good at science, but boy, I sure love outer space. You imagine if I actually let my brain do some work here. But anyways, so I'm going to read this. I got it from Gay Buzzer on Facebook. And I love that site because they highlight so many good people who are allies to the community, people who are part of the community, as a gay person or a lesbian or, however they identify. But, this one kind of blew my mind because I was reading it and I'm like, what the heck? And it took Sister Jeannine decades to get any kind of recognition for her work. And that's not to say that the Vatican didn't try to stop her. So she was born in 1942, which makes her 84 this year. So, and she's still going strong. She's still, according to the internet, she's still alive. So yay. And she's also an author. So anyways, I'm going to read this. In 1999, the Vatican ordered an American nun to stop all pastoral work with gay Catholics. She said no and kept going. 22 years later, the Pope wrote her a letter by hand to thank her for it. Sister Jeannine Gramick had been doing that ministry since the early 70s and co-founded the New Ways Ministry in 1977. The order came from Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, head of the office that polices Catholic doctrine, and was approved by Pope John Paul II. That was a little bit of a letdown. Ratzinger went on to become Pope Benedict XVI. Not my favorite pope. I'm serious. When somebody asked me how I felt about the new pope, I was like, I don't like him. His eyes are empty, and they were just anyway. So her co-founder, Father Robert Nugent, complied. A year later, her own religious order told her to stop speaking about the investigation and about homosexuality altogether. That was the point she refused outright, and in 2001 she moved her vows to a different order so the work could continue. That would be the Sisters of Loretto. So, in December 2021, Pope Francis, who I love, I love him even though he's gone now, and Pope Leo, love Pope Leo. But anyways, in December 2021, Pope Francis wrote to congratulate her on 50 years of the ministry she had been forbidden to do, and praised it as marked by closeness, compassion, and tenderness in the style of God. In October 2023, he sat down with her and 3 staff members of New Ways Ministry in person. I love that. I also love that our new Pope, straight out Chicago. And boy, he brings a Chicago out when people try to challenge him. And, that's not to say people from Chicago aren't nice, because they are. They're great. But, they will stand their ground. Pope Leo, good for you. I think he's a White Sox fan. That's his. That's okay. It's a whole different league from my team. Well, not my Angels, but my Padres. I got all the holy teams. But yeah, this is my coffee from yesterday. So anyways, like I said, I saw this on Facebook and I was like, oh, okay, since this is going to be a week that's highlighting important things that people have done, whether it's for their community or a wider community that has spread nationally and internationally, or a woman who said no to the church she serves and says, Sister Jeannine, way ahead, light years ahead of the Catholic Church. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a lapsed Catholic. I was wasn't born Catholic, but I was carried by a Catholic, so a hardcore Catholic, so I'm pretty sure I was born Catholic. I was baptized Catholic and raised Catholic. But when I hit 19, church became more of a sporadic thing, became more of a suggestion than anything by my mother periodically. Well, not periodically, every week. Are you coming? No. And to be honest with you, I think because a lot of it didn't align with my own beliefs. A lot of their beliefs just didn't sit right with me. And, yes, I have a full spiritual table, and yes, God is one of them. Okay, I'm not going to say he's the only guy, but there are others, all right? And to be honest, it's always kind of baffled me how a church that pretended to be so open was not open at all. 2,000 years, right? The Catholic Church is the oldest, aside from Judaism. But it's as far as Christianity goes, it is kind of like the grandparent of Christianity, right? It is the grand poobah. if you will. Started, what, about 2,000 years ago? So, anyway, we also know that over the centuries, the Catholic Church has not exactly been on the up and up, been a bit corrupt, used as a political tool and whatnot. But I do admit it was a little disappointing to hear that Pope John Paul II, who I adored, because that was the Pope for the majority of my life, all right? At least the majority of the life that I can remember, that he signed off on, Cardinal, was it a Cardinal? Cardinal Ratzinger. Yeah, see, Pope Benedict, it's right in his name, Ratzinger. And I don't mean to be mean, but I never liked him. I did not. It was almost like he took everything that Pope John Paul did, because Pope John Paul was not willing to cross that line. And that's okay. Maybe that's what we needed for the time that he was the Pope. But it's almost like Pope Benedict was trying to go back 2 centuries. And it's like, nope. That's why I love Pope Francis and Pope Leo. They are, people will say, well, they're too progressive. They're this, that. When Pope Francis became Pope, some coworkers of mine who were also Catholic had a very deep conversation. And it was basically 2 against 1. And it's not that I'm trying to say that it was 2 against 1, but it was, because they kept telling them, well, it was almost like having a conversation with my mom, but there were 2 of them. And they're all, well, I like Pope Benedict because he did this and he did that, and I don't like this new Pope because he's changing everything. But that's the point. It's kind of like the Constitution of this country, right? It was given the opportunity to have amendments because our founding fathers knew this country was going to change. It was not going to stay the same. And the Catholic Church, for almost 2 millennia, managed to almost stay the same, with no progression, no outward thinking. But what I love about Sister Jeannine, she's like, without saying the F you, she's like, F you, I'm out. Okay? I'm going to keep being a sister. I'm going to keep doing this work. Now, for whatever reason, Father Nugent, he kowtowed to the hierarchy. But don't forget too, nuns can't become Pope. So he did have more to lose. He could not have become like a Monsignor. It could have affected him becoming a bishop, which leads to being a cardinal, which leads to potentially being a Pope in the conclave. But what I love is that Pope Francis, he was watching from far away, for him to say, hey, Jeannine, come to the Pope House. I was going to say the White House. Come to the Pope House. Come to the Vatican. I think it was the Vatican, or maybe he met them out here. But wherever he was, wherever he met them, he said to her, thank you for the work you did. Because Pope Francis started opening the doors to our gay community. Right? I mean, as an ally, it always bugged me that my friends, who I know that were gay, had to kind of hide it just to be able to go to church. I had a friend who nobody can prove if he got let go because he was gay. But funny enough, and it was from a Catholic high school. Funny enough, though, he was doing great. Nobody ever had complaints. But the minute he came out as gay, poof, lost his job. And I don't get why. I really don't get why. Sister Gramick changed the world for a lot of people. I mean, I don't really have the testimonials, but if you are a person in the gay community, if you are a person who's Catholic, who has to kind of hold their head down and not be who they are in fear of being excommunicated, that's not a church. That's an exclusive group. And what I love about Pope Francis and Pope Leo is that they are reminding people who are Catholic that everybody is your brother and sister, right? They are following what the teachings of Jesus were meant to be, followed, right? They're sitting there, going, hey, you know what? As long as you're coming to church, I don't care how you identify. Okay? What you do behind your doors or what you do outside of this church, that's your business. Because when you're here, you're God's child wherever you are. But if you're in this church, you're here because you want to worship. and how you identify sexually should not affect that. We should not be closing our doors to people who just want to worship, who have a different lifestyle than maybe me or somebody else. To me, it's natural. You love your person, you love your person. Who cares if they're the same sex as you? Nobody cares. Well, apparently people care, but I don't care. I never cared. My best friend since 9th grade is gay. And I will go to bat for him every day. Older siblings, grandpa, Jerry. Jerry was a woman, but Jerry knew older sibling before older sibling was born. And by that I mean always a part of the family, and told her to call her grandpa. I'm your grandpa. And that was their affectionate term of endearment for all those years. And you know, she was also Catholic, but very closeted when it came to walking into church. And older sibling thinks it was kind of an open secret, but still, the fact that you can't live who you are and your life because of fear of being excommunicated, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And those people that I was arguing with at work that day, and I said, don't you want to live in a place that's more accepting? And I asked them straight out, well, if you guys are going to go by that doctrine, let's go back to Latin masses. They're all like, well, no, that's going a little too far. And I'm like, is it? Because back in the 50s, when they changed from Latin masses to English, everybody had a freaking cow, or whatever language you speak in whatever country, instead of all-encompassing Latin. Everybody had a cow. It's like, no, that's change. I get it. I'm not a person who endures change very easily, and I'm learning how to be better at it. I'm learning to just go with the flow, and not everybody can do that, because some people are very, very strict in their indoctrination. So let's see. Muddy says, my brother is gay. He was closeted for a long time because of the church. My church now has a gay music minister. Yay! And she's not even Catholic, right? So wait, no, you're not, right? So I know that your church is kind of an all-encompassing church, and I love that. But I mean, see guys, this is what I'm talking about. Our own loved ones can't be who they are because they're so afraid of what's going to happen in the church. Now, we have talked about Muddy's church before, where when they decided to let everybody in, they lost some members of their church. And I think that was the day we were talking about Christian nationalists. You know, the people who don't read the Bible but act like they have. Just, you know, take quotes and parrot it from somewhere else. Yeah, and I admit, I grew up Catholic, and I probably know the least amount of anybody. All right. I mean, it was the same thing every year in religion class. And then, you know, it just becomes, because it becomes so monotonous, you just don't really pay attention. My father, because of the way he was raised, I don't want to say who, because I don't want to offend anybody, but, no, let's put it this way. It was not Catholic, although I think he was baptized Catholic, but he did not grow up a Catholic. He grew up in a very, very indoctrinated, very, very group. So, oh yeah, that's right. You're Baptist, but, he's read the Bible, I think maybe once or twice from cover to cover. That man knows the Bible, and he still knows the Bible, even though he's kind of an agnostic atheist, which apparently is a thing. All right. Remember how I was always saying he's either an agnostic or an atheist, depending on the day? I don't have to say that anymore, because agnostic atheist is an actual term. So Muddy says, no, not Catholic. We were Baptist, but now our church is called Open Circle Community Church, or OC3. Oh, I like that. OC3. We identify as Christian, non-denominational. Oh, I love that. Almost kind of like a Christian Unity Church. Oh God, sibling. What was it called? The one place that we went to where people of all denominations were welcomed, and they were more about, you know, like positivity, and I mean, not weird positivity like, hi, join my cult, but just, you know, she was very clear to say whoever your higher power is, because a lot of people didn't know where to find their churches, or a lot of people weren't comfortable with it, or a lot of people weren't sure if they still wanted to be a part of, you know, the evangelical scene, right? But this gave them a place to kind of help them figure it out. And I really, really enjoyed it too. They're hard to find. So kudos to you, Muddy. I would like to go to your church just to check it out. I really would. Because I think it's important to incorporate everybody. Really, from what I understand from my own people who know the Bible, there's really not anything mentioned in the Bible about being gay and how we have to hate our gay friends. I mean, that's just kind of people taking passages and kind of bastardizing it to make them fit their needs. And so now people look at Pope Leo and sit there and go, he's a stain on the church. He's a this and that. And these are people who are not Catholic, right? Because he's not afraid to stand up for the people. He's not afraid to stand up for the immigrant or the downtrodden or the people that we wouldn't look twice at. You know, and I know that sometimes if they're not on their beds, homeless people can be a little dangerous. And that's not their fault. It's because they fell through the cracks. And yet we judge them. Yes, her name, oh right, the Church of Christian Science, Peggy Price. And she was really sweet. She had done a service for a little girl who was kidnapped and murdered in Orange County. And Sibling was so touched by her that she met with her to ask her if she would do her mom's services. And she did. She did. And I can't remember all the details of it and whatnot, but we did go to her church for a while until we moved. And it was probably, look, I'm getting chills. It was the most welcoming, encompassing, like love encompassing place I'd ever been. And when they say Christian Science, it's, don't get hung up on the science word. It was really just non-denominational, and it could be very metaphysical at times, but it was very, again, non-denominational, very encompassing, very, your higher power. Oh, that's right. Her mom wanted her to do her service. So, because she knew she was dying, she's like, and she did point it out to older sibling, but older sibling and her were very touched by the way she had handled the little girl's services, and it was very beautiful. So, okay, sorry. I don't know how that happened, but I don't mean to squirrel on you, but there's a bug in my room. Anyway, sorry, I squirreled a little bit there. But I love what Sister Jeannine did. She said no. And not only did she say no, she said no to the Catholic patriarchy. She said, screw you. Well, I'm sure she didn't use those words. Those are my words. But she says, these people are loved by God just as much as you and I are. Just because you as a person decided that God doesn't love them doesn't mean that you speak for God. I don't care who you are. If you go against the grain of basic humanity, you do not speak for God. I believe Pope Francis and Pope Leo spoke for God because they are encompassing the teachings of what the church was meant to teach. The Bible has been retranslated and has been kind of bastardized in its own way over the centuries to fit different people's needs. But if you go back to the basic texts of the Bible, I'm pretty sure you are going to find a completely different Bible. Even Mary Magdalene had a book in the Bible that was removed because a woman was not meant to be that strong. A woman was not meant to stand next to Jesus as anything but a whore who washed his feet. There is no mention in the Bible about her being a whore until one of the popes, way back in, I think, the 1500s, said she was. She was Jesus' equal. Bet a lot of you didn't know that. And I'm sure you're damning me to hell if you're watching this by accident and going, oh no. I have no clue what my mom would say. But my mom knows I always thought outside of the box. And because of my agnostic atheist out there, that's why. He's all, think about what else was going on outside this Bible around this time. He's all, where's China in the Bible? Where's Russia in the Bible? Although Russians are, predominantly Catholic or Jewish. But he's all, and I'm all, oh, I never thought about that. He's all, where's Irish people? Where's the British people? And, he stopped and made me think, and it drove my mom nuts because it's like, oh, you're going to unindoctrinate her. But at the same time, my mom was not well a lot when she was little. She had her, she was a preemie. She had sick, the church was her solitude. The church was her safe space to go. And when nobody would take her to church because they were working or they were busy, she would walk herself to church at like 7 or 8 years old. And I found that very impressive. So I also didn't want to overstep on her. But the thing is I think she expected me to be more like her. I think she was afraid that if I went down the path of my dad, I'd go to hell. But here's the thing. I don't think I'm going to hell. Whatever's on the other side, the bad stuff is not meant for me. And I don't think it's meant for a lot of people. I have a whole different view on that, okay? A whole different view on that. But I don't believe that if you don't accept Jesus, you're going to hell. Or you will not see your loved ones on the other side. I don't believe that. That's fire and brimstone talk, as far as I'm concerned. And I really don't want to step on anyone's beliefs. I don't. But why would a God that you pray to for all these beautiful things and that you think all the time throw fire and brimstone at you? Nobody ever really thinks about that, do they? They don't. In fact, I asked my friend, who said, oh, well, anybody who doesn't accept Christ into their hearts is going to hell. And it's like, well, what about all the Jewish people? They're God's chosen people. You telling me they're going to hell? No answer. Because they didn't think past the Bible that they were being taught. And they didn't take the time to read the Bible. I admit, I'm not taking the time to read the Bible. That's a hard book to read. It's very old. Okay. Sometimes it just goes right over my head. And I've always said that I would, before I die, I want to read War and Peace and I want to read the Bible. I'm being honest, those are the two things, but they're one of those things that I feel like when I'm on my deathbed, it's like, well, I meant to, but I didn't. So I need to get on that. But they had no answer. And it's like, look, there are over 1,000 religions on this planet. And some of them are probably variations of kind of the big whatever, the big however many, right? You have Catholics and Christians, you have Muslims, you have Jewish people, you have Hindu, you have Buddhists, and then you have these Nordic things, and not things, I don't mean any disrespect in that, but you have, and just things that are offshoots of other things, right? You have the non-denominational Christian Science, or the OC3, which is a division, kind of a little branch off of the Baptist tree, right? So, Baptists, evangelicals, Anglican, Lutherans, Protestants, those kind of came from Catholicism, right? The Protestants and the Lutherans, they were Catholic. Well, we all know how the Protestants got started, Henry VIII. But we also know about the Lutherans, right? Martin Luther. He says, I'm going to stick these things up what's wrong with the church, and I'm going to go start my own church. And they did. And, Lutherans are about as close to Catholics as you're going to get. And I would say that Protestants are too, but I don't know enough about Protestants. But I did have Lutheran friends because we had a Lutheran church right down the street from where I went to grade school, my Catholic church. And I did have some friends there. So, we would discuss and compare at 7 years old. And it's like, oh, well, that's not that different. Oh, wait, your so-and-so can be married. Ours can't. Just little tiny things like that. But I know I kind of went off the subject here. But what I love about the New Ways ministry is that they didn't forget about the LGBTQ plus community. They remembered them. And this sister, she was not letting it go. She was doing things at a time when it was dangerous for her to be doing these things. I mean, there have been pre-Stonewall organizations, but they were always, always had the kibosh put on them because they didn't deal with things that way. Or, there was oh God, I wish I could remember. I did it last year or the year before during Pride. We talked about the different groups that there were. There was a lesbian group. There was a gay men's group. And they kind of worked together. And this is back in like the 20s, 30s. And, but then it's almost like they had to go underground again. And here you have a nun at a time when the Catholic Church is really, really not accepting of gay people. Like, if you died of AIDS or you were gay, you weren't even allowed to be, have your services in the church. And my cousin had passed away from AIDS. And I think my parents said that he had cancer so that he could have a Catholic funeral. And I think that was one of the first times where it's kind of like, this is so backwards. It's like, if God is this all-loving person, why can someone not have their services in the church? Right? Gay marriage. I'm not sure if that's even allowed in the Catholic Church. I think it is now. But when it first got approved, no. And seriously, why did it need to be approved? Because you have people out there completely opposite of Sister Jeannine Gramick who want to dictate, who are so afraid of gay people. I mean, it's not a disease, guys. You're not going to catch it. Okay? It's not like the flu. It's not like chickenpox. These are just people who want to live their lives and love who they love. And I don't think that should be a problem. I don't. And I am so tired of hearing people bash our gay community. So tired of it. I love all my gays. Not because, I'm supposed to, but because I've always loved them. They're my people. They're my peeps. They're my family. They're my friends. They're my best friend. The people I've met through older sibling, they're my people. I don't see a lot of them anymore, and I don't talk with a lot of them anymore because that scene kind of went the way of the wind. And after the matriarch of the group passed away, but it showed me a whole new world. It showed me people who love everybody unconditionally. And, they're I'm not saying the gay community is perfect. Okay. You have some people who are just like everybody else who, but all the people I know, all the people I have been privileged to know, they just want to live their life. They just want to do the do and be the be. And, a lot of them who are Catholic, who don't want to hide or stay in the religious closet. I mean, that's, to be honest with you, telling someone to hide their sexuality in a church is like putting them in a timeout. And if anybody thinks that's okay, do you really think God thinks that's okay? No. Because the Bible told you? Fuck no. Excuse my language, but no. It's a book. And if it was sent here to be a guideline, it's not working because people are shitty to each other. They go to church once a week, then they turn around and they're assholes for the next week because they can just pray away their sins. No. Whether you step into a church or not, and I don't mean everybody, okay? I know a lot of wonderful, wonderful people that go to church. Muddy's one of them. My mom was a good person. In fact, if she did something wrong, it's like, I'm sorry, God. I think that's where I got it from. Sorry, God. But I always believe she had the red phone to God because, boy, when she prayed for something, bam, it happened. It was like, wow. But she also had some backwards views on things. You can't ask God for things because he's busy. And it's like, no, God's omnipresent. God can be there for you and 5,000 other people at the same time. Okay? It's as simple as that. We have to stop treating each other poorly. We have to take the example of Sister Jeannine Gramick, who in her 4 years has shown compassion and closeness and love. I think that's how the Pope put it. Closeness, compassion, and tenderness in the style of God, if you are a religious person. If you're not a religious person, but you still believe in God, here it is. And that's from the Pope. And, you know, the people that I had that discussion with that one day when I said it was like 2 against 1, I adore them. I adore them to bits. I do. And we ended up having to agree to disagree because I was not budging and they were not budging. And it was because at this point, Pope Francis was taking over and he was saying that, you know, we open our doors to everybody. And I told them, I said, what would happen if you had a family member who was gay? Would you closet them because they're gay? And I told them, I said, look, I'm an ally of the community, but what if I was gay? Would you tell me I can't go to church? And they couldn't answer those questions because nobody had ever posed them to them. Sister Jeannine Gramick made the church ask the hard questions. And the guy who would become Pope Benedict said no. And you can see what kind of papacy he had for a while. Was not a fan. Absolutely not a fan. From the moment he became Pope, I was like, even older sibling, I'm like, I just don't like him. I said, I didn't mean darkness behind his eyes like he was evil. Not at all. I meant there was just like, it was just vacant. You know, like, this is what I'm going to do, and I am going to follow the letter of the law to a T. And I'm not going to make changes, and I'm not going to do this because this is how I believe. And they were outdated beliefs, in my personal opinion. In my humble opinion, they were outdated beliefs. Pope Francis made me proud to be Catholic again. Even though I don't go to church, and I'm still very much so a lapsed Catholic. Pope Leo, even prouder. First American Pope, right? And I love his chutzpah. He's just like, kapow. You know, he's not afraid to take on anybody. And I like that. And not because it's combative, but because he knows that as this church and as a representative of God, I mean, for Catholics, he's like the Church of England, right? I mean, the Church of England, whoever sits in that throne is supposed to be a representative of God. For Catholics, the Pope is our representative. You know, he's the guy that, you know, is like the king. And I don't mean that to sound stupid or whatever, but, you know, he's the guy that we turn to look at, you know, for guidance. And I love the direction that the last Pope and this Pope are taking the Catholic Church, because it needs to come out of the Dark Ages. And I love that Pope Francis, you know, gave Sister Jeannine, after years, the thank you that she deserved. I won't say anything bad about Father Nugent because, like I said, you know, at least they started it together. But he complied and moved on. And I don't know. Maybe he has regrets over it. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? But I know that she said no. And that is a powerful woman. She stood up to what some would call the patriarchy, the Catholic patriarchy, and she said no. She said absolutely not. You know, there's a scene in Conclave where the cardinal, they're all the popes are, or not all the popes, all the cardinals are getting together to vote on the new pope. And all the nuns, oh, sorry. Okay, so older siblings said it was the Church of Religious Science. That's fine. That's fine. Church of Religious Science. But anyways, in Conclave, there was a scene where the nuns are doing everything. They're preparing everything for all of the cardinals that are coming in from all over the world, blah, blah, blah. And in the prayer that the new cardinal, who some people found controversial, he thanks the nuns. And the head nun, I know this is just a movie, she smiles, because you have to wonder how many people forget to thank them. Sometimes it's a thankless job. I don't know. This is why I don't necessarily dip my toes into religion anymore. I'll always be a Catholic. That's just who I am. My spiritual table will always be a large one. And that is probably a no-no in a lot of religions to have more than one person sitting at my spiritual table. But that's how I roll. And I'm not saying other people have to be like me. No. I mean, if you're a Catholic and you love being Catholic, kudos. I'm proud to say that I was baptized Catholic now, because the teachings of the last pope and this pope are really aligning with my heart and the way I've always thought. I don't know what made me think out of the box when I was a kid. Maybe it is because I had a father who grew up totally indoctrinated and said, screw it, I'm not religious anymore. I don't believe. But who also had his thumb on the Bible because he knew it cover to cover. My mom never read it cover to cover. He had to. He had no choice. So, and it haunts him to this day. This religion he grew up in. And how kind of exclusive it tends to try to be. Excuse me. But I think if my mom were looking down at me right now, she'd be proud of me. She'd be proud of me for standing my ground. And I think she probably would have been proud of Sister Jeannine, because that may have made her change her mind on things. To see a woman stand up for the marginalized at the time, before 2 popes came in and said, you're fine, come on in. You don't have to hide who you are. The Pope even stood up against some bishops. There's a faction of priests who still go by old school rules. Basically exclude everybody if they don't fit our criteria. And he put his foot down on that. And he's like, he's all, we are a church that encompasses everybody. We welcome everybody. And that's how church should be. Muddy's church. The OC3, what was it again? The Open Circle Community Church. They're Christian they're Baptist Christian non-denominational. You can walk in and you can feel safe. And I think if you are going to go to church, if you are a person of religion, that's how church should be. So, to Sister Jeannine Gramick, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for the LGBTQ community. I don't know if my friends who are Catholic have ever heard of her. But if they haven't, I hope they do, to know that there was somebody who was in the Catholic Church who was always on their side. Before Pope Leo, before Pope Francis, who had their back. And who said no to a group of men who were trying to put the kibosh on her work. She said, nope. Come on, seriously, don't ever argue with a person who has a Ph.D. and a Master's of Science degree in math. I mean, you know how hard that is? She's just like, dude, I went through school and got a degree in math. I can do anything. I mean, she basically like Superwoman. All right. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Please, please, please take care of yourselves. Like I said, this is going to be a week of groups of people who were kind of marginalized and, kind of upended in their own way and said, this is what we need to do. And we're going to get it done. And they did. And Sister Jeannine, who, like I said, she was kind of like, she's the Hail Mary, right? This is at the 11th hour. I saw her story last night. I'm like, oh, that's the one for tomorrow. And, but I don't want to spoil the rest, okay? Because, yeah, I don't want to spoil the best. And now like I said, I'm high tech. I found my dad's iPad and his second one, and I'm all like, look at me. Now I can read things off of there without having to be like, I can't read it off the computer, blah, 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 because I'm on it. So anyways, so yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Look up Sister Jeannine, okay? Jeannine. Last name is G-R-A, M as in Mary, I-C-K. Look her up, read her story. I believe she has some books out there in the world. Look up New Ways Ministry. And, you know, this is a woman who didn't just advocate for lesbian, gay, bisexual rights. She also advocated for transgender rights. And we know that that is still a fight that is happening today. So, again, please, please, please take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Be kind to everyone. The reason I love this shirt is because I want people to know who might be in crisis or who need an ear, who need a friend, that I'm safe. You are safe around me. You are safe to talk to me. You are safe to open up to me. Whatever you say to me stays with me. That's why I love this shirt. And a lot of people don't get it because they don't look close enough at the planets, being the flags. But that's okay, because I am a safe space for you. And I always will be. So, I'll see everybody back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live, All Lives Are Public under Shelly Marie Lucas. You can also find me on YouTube, TikTok, and across the social media board. I got it on Amazon, Muddy. So, yeah. Look at her. I'm looking that shirt up online right now. Yeah, I got it from Amazon. So if you want, I can send you the link. If you don't go through Amazon, I'm sure it is out there somewhere. All right. So again, have a great day, everybody. Muddy, older sibling, thank you as always for being on, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.